In this great city, we've come to be. Live, love, London TV.
Hi, we're Live Love London TV. I'm Ade.
And I'm Chelsea.
And we're here today in Brick Lane about to meet Raste, the creator of the amazing hip-hop blog rhymeonbeat.com. Should we go check it out?
Let's go. What made you wake up one day and decide that this was something you wanted to share and kind of work with, basically?
It mainly came out of me following a lot of other blogs that were already sort of well established. Some of them a bit more commercial based, others a bit more sort of run by individuals. And to be honest, although they were covering a lot of the music I was listening to anyway, they weren't covering specifically the bits I wanted to hear. Yeah. For example, UK hip hop really didn't have that much of a focus on some of those blogs. A lot of them were American based, so I wanted to focus a bit more on that. But essentially it was just so I could give a platform to the music I was into at the time.
Do you remember your first introduction to hip hop? Like, what was the first hip hop song that you actually heard?
This is gonna sound really naff, but it was probably Eminem, actually, when Eminem really blew up. And then it very quickly went from that to sort of like Wu-Tang. Probably I would have been about 12, 13, 14, that sort of age range. But at that time, it was kind of frustrating because I couldn't go into any of the shows. So, and to be honest, it was difficult to come across the records as well because at that age, I wasn't really allowed to go anywhere by myself, really. So it's not like you could just go to the local record shop, and I had no money, so I'd probably save some of my money and maybe buy like a CD.
What were you listening to before Eminem came into your life and changed your world?
Do you know what? As a kid, I didn't really. I know loads of people say, "Oh, I used to listen to my parents' records when they were like, I was listening to Miles Davis or whatever it was, or Jackson 5." No, I didn't really have that. I had like traditional Kurdish parents, so essentially a lot of it was what my parents were playing, which was generally Kurdish folk music or what was on the charts at the time.
So thanks to your blog, I've discovered the soul and blues singer, Rags and Bone Man. It was Rory Graham, wasn't it? Yeah? Okay. What advice do you have for people like me who only kind of have knowledge about chart music and they don't really know where to find sort of underground hip-hop or bluesy sounds?
The best thing to do is probably go to record stores. Independent record stores generally will allow you to listen to music. They'll have, generally speaking, an album of the week or an album of the month. And if you're open to it, it's always worth going into a record shop and just listening to it. I mean, the other thing is if you find an artist that you sort of instantly have a connection with, or you just generally enjoy the music that they're putting out, it's always worth checking on what their label, if they're signed to a label, what other music they have. So Rag and Bone Man, he's sort of a little bit separate to what the rest of the roster on that label, because the rest of them are rappers and producers and DJs, whereas Rag and Bone Man, as you said, is a blues and soul singer with a really powerful voice, which is sort of is not along the same lines as what you get with the rest of the artists on that label.
I also read in one of your articles that Mass Appeal held a competition to pitch an idea for Nas's music video Represent. What do you think about major artists like Nas kind of giving their fans an opportunity to get involved directly with their work?
Well, I think on the whole it's very important for artists. I mean, social media has become a huge part of not only releasing music and making sure it gets out, but in business in general. But I think especially in music, because there is so much music out there, and there's so much music out there that has huge corporations backing it for the little man, as it were, to make inroads and really sell their music. It's important for the artists to engage with their fans, and a lot of it does come from social networking. A lot of it comes from competitions and things like that.
You also said in your blog that Illmatic, which is one of Nas's albums, should be included in the top 3 best albums of all time. What are your top 3 favourite albums of all time? Hip-hop.
I mean, in terms of hip-hop, it changes all the time, to be honest. Illmatic will definitely be in that top 3.
Yeah. Well, you have to say that.
Well, yes. No, but it is. I mean, from production, from rapping to flow to the imagery to the artwork, it encompasses New York in that era so well. The other one isn't really an album; it's more of a compilation, so it's a bit cheating a little bit. Would be Gangstar's Mass Appeal. That collection of music is just a masterpiece, to be honest with you. The third one, most people wouldn't probably count this even in their top 10, but because it represented an era for me, it'd probably be the Sagas of Kalashnikov. Purely because at that time when I was growing up in my teenage years, it was sort of a lot of it. One, it was very unique in terms of the skits it had on the album, the things it was covering, and Kalashnikov was really just on fire at that point. I mean, he was really. It was sort of like what Nas did on Illmatic, representing an era, painting a picture of New York in the early '90s. With the Sagas of Kalashnikov, it did that for London in the early 2000s, basically. So, and I still play it, and it still, to some extent, seems relevant even now.
Nas apparently said that hip hop is dead. You know, a lot of artists are like selling out and going into the whole mainstream sort of route. Would you say that that is accurate for like today?
Yes and no. I mean, at the time, Nas was probably saying that. It probably was. I think at the time he said that statement, rap, although it's now become popular music, like rap and graffiti culture, hip hop culture on the whole is used to sell products. I mean, for example, we're here now in London, near Brick Lane, and this sort of thing has now become a mainstream tourist attraction, whereas probably a decade ago, the councils and local government probably wouldn't have stood for that, but now it's become acceptable. So, but even saying that, I think artists like Kendrick Lamar have come through, who are clearly got amazing abilities. Drake, although probably not my favorite artist, clearly has some rhyming ability. They've got really great production. So I think that statement is not really valid anymore. I think it probably was once upon a time, but even when we saw Nas at Lovebox not too long ago when he was performing Illmatic, he was saying that all those people there out to see him is testament to the fact that hip-hop is well and truly alive. Yeah.
This might be a tough one, but you have to pick two of your favorite artists, rap artists.
I mean, right now, today, I was listening to a lot of John Wayne. I really like what he's coming out with, and it tends to be off the beaten track in terms of his rapping and as well as his production, because I think he was a producer first and he sort of moved across into rapping. I'm just thinking of a second. I mean, purely because we saw him the other day at Lovebox, and we do seem to be talking about Nas quite a lot at the moment. It's probably Nas at the moment because I've been spinning Nas's Illmatic quite a lot. But I suppose in that respect, you've got a balance of having an old school artist and more of a brand new talent. Okay,
that sounds fair. And so if those two were to battle each other, who do you reckon, it might be a silly question, but who do you reckon would win?
Oh, well, to be honest though, it would be difficult to say purely because they're not battle MCs. They're from different eras, and I don't think I've seen either of them sort of beyond that rhyme battling on stage. But saying that, there was Nas's Nas and Jay-Z beef a few years ago, and Nas probably came out on top in terms of that respect. So I'd probably say Nas would.
If you were having a Mad Hatters themed party, which hip hop artist would you invite?
What an odd question. Probably off the top of my head, probably Madlib and Madlib only. Oh. Yes. No, he just seems to be sort of on another plane of thinking and just musical genius. His sort of Quasimodo alter ego, to the beats that he makes, to the way he samples, it's just incredible. To be honest, I'd like to just sit there and just absorb all his knowledge and sort of his thought process into and how he goes about making the music that he does.
What food would you offer him, just out of curiosity? You'd have like a spread of like cakes and tea and sandwiches. What would you make for him?
Oh. To be honest, from what I've seen of Madlib, there seems to be something that is an ongoing theme in his music production, and that tends to be of the herbal substances. So that's probably all he would ask for. Maybe some herbal tea.
Where do you see Rhyme on Beat in the next 5 years? Like, what's your vision for the future?
I definitely would like it to update it more often. I definitely would like to focus only on hip-hop, because I know a lot of blogs cover a variety of music, so they may cover all types of underground culture. And also, I'd like to have a much larger presence on YouTube, on other video platforms, purely because I think that would drive more traffic to the website.
Finally, we'd like to know, Raste, whether you believe that there is life on other planets.
Oh, wow. Well, to be honest, I studied physics many moons ago. I wasn't very good at it, but I think purely from a probability sort of aspect of it, there probably is some sort of life out there, but I guess we'll never know. But let's hope they like hip-hop if there is.
Shutting green on the corner to make a profit, staring at the cosmics, trying to find the logic.